Hey, it's June the 9th, 2017, and it's a beautiful morning here in Big Spring, Texas. Ain't a cloud in the sky. You really couldn't ask for a better morning and stuff. It's not too hot. Wanted to holler at y'all today during this beautiful morning. There's a few things that are on my mind, and I thought I would share them with y'all today. There's three things in particular that I want to talk with y'all about. I want to discuss some stuff with y'all. Number one, being politics. Two, war. Number three, lastly, actually, child abuse. I want to holler at you about these things real quick. And the things that I've been thinking about this morning. Number one is, like I said, politics. Right? Either you or someone that you love. I know that you know somebody or someone that you know. We all know a person who does not like politics, can't handle politics, doesn't want to talk about politics. They don't know politics. They never want to be around politics. We know people like that, either that, or maybe you out there, maybe you don't really like politics or whatever. You don't like to talk about it, find that it hurts your brain. I'm not really judging you on any sort of thing like that. It's like you can do whatever you like. You can be interested in what you like, all right? And I wouldn't try to persuade you otherwise. Here's the thing about it. What I do have to interject and say is that, that sort of a thing, people who are uninterested in politics, that only does occur in America or in other Western type countries. That only occurs in America and other certain types of countries out here because in other countries they don't have that luxury, right? Kind of find out, you can do some research, and I've been doing some lately. You kind of find out that in most of these countries, people absolutely there is no luxury. You do have to know about politics because politics will burn down your house. Politics will knock down your front door. You do have to know about it. Politics can and will kill people who you love in your country. Because the thing is, people have all these conflicts. There are major conflicts. There's so many going on right now. And there've been a lot. Here's the thing, there's so many conflicts. You can Google it and type in like conflicts of the world. You're gonna see a map where basically most of the map is colored in, right? And you have to understand that there's patchwork in there. There's spots where it's more violent and conflicting than in other spots, surely. But most of these countries have some sort of conflict, right? Which means death. That means a lot of people are dying, basically, fighting a war against each other. Right, so in a lot of these countries, just understand that there is no luxury of not knowing politics. Politics is right up in your face all day, right? And that's why I want to explain about politics here in America or in the Western world in general, is that a lot of people don't have the stomach for it. They don't have the heart for it to listen to it and everything like that. That's okay. What you need to understand is that politics is, unfortunately, the one and only thing that keeps us between us dying and killing each other, right? The reason that we're not killing each other in barbaric fashion has everything to do with politics and nothing else. So that's why I want to suggest that, if you don't like politics or you don't get into it, you don't really like hearing about it too much and stuff, my suggestion to you, or maybe some people that you love, and you're not going to be able to tell them, but my suggestion would be to don't even pay attention, because that's the thing about it. It's the only thing keeping you between war. Here's the thing, if you don't know anything about it, right, that's actually very dangerous, but you might want to know someone who does. Someone you can trust, right? A lot of people turn to someone on the television, like a Bill O'Reilly or something like that, and because they don't know shit about nothing, right? And so they trust a Bill O'Reilly, and that's what a lot of people have done back in the day, right? And I'm sure a lot of people still listen to his podcast and stuff. Old people, surely, but people still do listen, right? You do need to know someone who you can trust. And in this time of tribulation, a lot of people are going to turn away from the people that they can trust. Why? Because the things politically that they say sound outrageous. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that sounds familiar to you, but you're going to turn away from this person. Because you're going to say, oh man, this person, they're talking about war on the horizon, they're talking about this and that, and they're just blowing things out of proportion. No, they're not. Actually, war's been on the horizon. And in fact, what's fortunate about America is that it stays on the horizon for the most part. Let's not even include the war on drugs, which sincerely does cause all sort of conflict in South America, Central America especially, United States of America. There's a big old death toll when it comes to the war on drugs. Gangs, like say the Crips and the Bloods, you might as well just look at that as social conflict, man. They're having it in other countries, and they might not be Crips and Bloods, but they're fighting and killing each other just the same, right, in a lot of these countries, right? So with that all being said, you got to understand that politics does keep actual war and killing each other, which is a serious matter. it does keep it at bay. So with that being said, I wouldn't suggest that most people even here in America, because I know America, I wouldn't suggest that most people even get into politics or even try to understand it. All right, because you don't have a brain for it, or the stomach for it, or the heart for it, and God bless you. You're not supposed to. You're meant for other things, and that's cool. You might be very skilled in these other things, but however, it's a great idea to know someone personally who you can trust as far as to what's going down in politics today, because American politics are flying off the handle, all right? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Stuff is really, really coming to a head as far as American politics, you know what I'm saying? People in the know that physical violence isn't too far after that. That's just the universal rule about the world, all right? One last thing I want to touch upon is that, okay, here's the reason. Here's the reason why people over here don't have war all over them, basically. The reason is because, for number one, free speech. There is an umbrella of protection that Jesus offers, and he does do that. So there's freedom of speech. We have guns, all right? And certain things, certain variable factors, our politics. We have freedom of speech. We can say whatever we want. And what that does is it keeps people from absolutely killing each other and getting us involved in all sorts of skirmishes, right? And here's what I do want to point out. There's a large minority in most of these other countries, and you know what I'm saying, you're going to have to admit it to yourself one day. A lot of people have already admitted it. There's a large minority in a lot of these other countries who are damn dirty savages. Right? And there's no getting around it. We're not going to change them. We're not going to convince them otherwise. There's a large minority in most of these countries who are damn dirty savages, right, and beneath us, basically. I'm not saying a certain race of people. I'm not saying a certain kind of people. I'm saying a certain, they carry a certain principality, if you will. All right? They're savage barbarians. That's how they were raised, and that's how they continue to be. And guess what? That's how their brain is. That's how it operates, as savage barbarians. And I'm not saying most of the people in the world. I'm saying a large minority of people. And what happens is this large minority of savage barbarians, what it does is it throws a country off kilter, all right, in a way that now people who are in charge of the country do have to control the savage barbarians. And lots of times what this creates is an atmosphere for maybe a dictator, maybe someone who has a very strong hand who can come down, because he has to rule over savage barbarians. You understand? And so there are some crazy bad dictators over in the Middle East and Africa and stuff, and I can't say if I can even blame them, because lots of times they're looking over savage barbarians, and they know it, and I know it. All right? But I did want to point that out, because that's another key aspect to think about when you consider that we're not currently shooting each other, which is happening in plenty of other places right now on Earth. All right? And all these conflicts, might I remind you, are very well connected, economically speaking, socially speaking. They're connected, and there's watershed moments that happen where, and it just escalates things. It gets people, alliances form, and bigger wars start happening, and that is what's occurring right now. All right? Undoubtedly, that is fact. All right, so back to my last thought. Savage barbarians exist, all right? A lot of people don't want to admit that. They think, oh, you can change anyone to be a good, responsible, functional member of society and stuff. And actually, no, you can't, because they're savage barbarians, all right? Put them by the wayside. That's the thing. The Bible always said that. It always said put savage barbarians, just put them somewhere, all right? Because they don't belong with your people. Now I had to explain that. If you follow some of these alternative, reporters and investigators, you'll find out real quick, guess what? We got savage barbarians here. Absolutely. Right? They might not be as savage and as barbarian as in other countries, but guess what? We got them. Right? So the issue is, right now, and it has been for a while, how do we separate ourselves from these savage barbarians? All right? I want to just ask that question, you know what I'm saying? And, everybody's going to have their own different answer for it. How do we separate ourselves from these savage barbarians? I think it's imperative, because ultimately, whether I like it or not, whether you like it or not, savage barbarian is going to bring us down. Either we put savage barbarians to the wayside, meaning either, we just, basically all we have to do is separate ourselves from them. That is the only way this will work. If we separate ourselves from savage barbarians, and we understand they're very good at hiding in society. Very good. It's hard to segregate them out of our society, because they leech off of us, basically. They love the spoils of our work, these savage barbarians. And behind closed doors, when ain't nobody looking, their savage barbarianism does come out, all right? I mean, there's story after story every single day of savage barbarians in this country. How do we separate ourselves? How do we separate ourselves? It's one of these questions that I ask myself all the time, and I try to answer myself. I go ahead and do some research. How do we separate ourselves from savage barbarians? All right, that is the number one question right now for today, for this video. But actually, before I get out of here, I want to tell y'all a little story. Something that y'all probably aren't aware of, all right? Maybe some of y'all are, you know what I'm saying? I'm not a big expert on Africa, but I wanted to talk to y'all about Africa today a little bit. I was doing some research on, like I said, these wars and conflicts all over the world, and there's a lot of them. And I was noticing that most of the world actually is in a war and a conflict in some sort of way, shape, form, or fashion, most of it. Right? There's some countries that are considered not in war, not in conflict, and actually are just kind of, in a way, isolated to themselves and in some fashion chilling. Right? They're not in a war necessarily or conflict. All right? And I was looking at some of these countries, and you know, there's some that I heard of, some that I never heard of. One of them was to include Mauritania. All right? You know what I'm saying? How many of y'all ever heard of Mauritania, or, you know what I'm saying, like, know anything about Mauritania? I gotta let you know, I went through the entirety of public school education. I had no clue, never heard of Mauritania. Or if I did, I certainly don't remember it. Right? So I was looking into Mauritania, and I was wondering, you know, how come it is that they don't have conflict and war and stuff, according to some sources? What is it that they're doing that's so good, you know what I'm saying, that they could stay out of this sort of stuff? I mean, they are in Africa, after all. Most of their country is a desert, apparently. Right? It's Mauritania. It's on the west, basically the west coast of Africa. All right, so I looked into it. See, now I want to talk to y'all about child abuse. All right, because like I said in the beginning, I meant to talk to y'all about child abuse. All right, and I want to use Mauritania as an example. Like I said, you probably don't know nothing about Mauritania, and I don't blame you. Come to find out, probably the most interesting thing about Mauritania is a practice called le bleu or something like that. It's some sort of French word, all right? Where basically, this is what happens. The mother of a Mauritanian child, a little girl, what she'll do is she'll force feed her, and it'll be like a big ceremonial thing, and they'll basically force feed their, I swear to you, and you can check it all, I'll leave some links. They'll force feed their children, their daughters, just food, all sort of food. The reason is, believe it or not, they want to get their daughters very fat and obese. Right? Because it's a sign of beauty over there in Mauritania. It's a sign of sexiness and all sort of comfort. I got to let you know, they get them all obese, these very young girls. And meanwhile, the girls are crying. They're all in all sort of pain. Nothing about this makes sense. But the mothers, what they do is they force feed their children. And you'll be watching these videos, and you can't help but think to yourself, damn, these mothers here, they're savage barbarians. And there's really no arguing that. All right, there's no debating it. These mothers over here are savage barbarians, and they're force feeding their little girls to make them fat and obese. What this does, their newfound fatness and obesity, what this does is it brings on an early onset of puberty. That's what it does. All right, so they know this. They force feed the little girls so that they get early puberty and early onset diabetes, and so that they can get married at a very young age. This is a custom that, although it's frowned upon in certain kind of urban areas of Mauritania, it really is a very common rural practice over there in Mauritania. Force feeding your little girls until they're absolutely blowed up, obese, and have all sort of health problems. And what this does is it sends them through puberty. I swear to you, this is what I've seen. Sends them through puberty sooner. That way, you know, they get married sooner. I'm talking about 13, 14, 15 years old girls, obese out of their brains by force, in order to make sure that they can get married and start having babies real early. Now, a lot of people, like I said, you look at these videos and say, oh man, these people are savage barbarians. Right? You look at the mothers and you think, well, okay, you know, they might have good intent. Like, pretty much here's the mother's reasoning. Is, you know, the children don't like it. I was put through it and I didn't like it. Children don't like it. But you know what? It's good for them because they're going to get married. They're going to get taken care of. All right, so that's what the mothers are thinking about. They're thinking about, they're saying, you know, the children don't like it, but you know what? It's good for them, though. Right? And so meanwhile, you understand that, you know, that mother is kind of out of her mind. All right? She absolutely is abusing her daughter in an extreme way. There's all sort of details about not only force feeding, but you know, whipping them with sticks and making them eat their own vomit. I swear that this is what's going on in Mauritania, right? So that's very abusive. A lot of people in this country look at it and say, you know what, that's very abusive. Oh my God, these people are savage barbarians. You know what? I would have to agree with you. They are savage barbarians. That's what it does seem to be the case. And there's a lot of people in the country that are turning away from it because of the obvious and disgusting health problems that come with it. Meanwhile, in the United States of America, we're having our own problem with that because people are trying to tell us that health problems and ailments and being just morbidly obese is somehow an acceptable thing, and it's really not. All right? But in Mauritania, they have a altogether different problem because now they have people who are, I mean, they've been having for centuries now, these savage barbarians. What they'll do is they'll force feed their little daughters into, you know what I'm saying, into damn balloons, all right, basically. And their daughters will be crying and throwing up and having the worst experience of their lives, all right, at the ages of 11, 12, 13, all right. Like I say, you look at them, say, oh man, these savage barbarians. Oh man, they don't know what the hell they're doing and stuff, and it's kind of messed up. You might think, well, it's kind of messed up to make this child do something. Obviously, the child's own body is telling you they don't want to do it. They're crying. They're in lots of pain. Of course they don't want to do it. Y'all are some savage barbarians making these children do what they don't want to do. Y'all are some savage barbarians. That's probably the thought process going through your mind as you watch some of these videos. Might I remind you that in our own country, first of all, we're struggling with the issue of whether or not morbid obesity might be a bad thing. We're struggling with that issue. But might I also point out that in America, lots of times, to include diet, lots of times, parents will try to force their children to do something they don't want to do, right? To include going to school at an early age. You see that the children are crying. You see that they're very upset. And then, meanwhile, the excuse will be, well, it'll be good for them. You know what I'm saying? It'll be good for them because they're going to learn things, and it's going to help them in their life, and they're going to get a good job because they go to school, and they're going to get all sort of money, and they're going to live comfortably. It's going to be good for them. Meanwhile, totally ignore the idea of sending them to these schools at such an early age is very traumatizing. And more often than not, it's not what the child wanted to do. All right? Lots of times they'll verbally or somehow in some way express to you that that's not what they want to do. There's many instances in our culture in which we try to make children do something that they don't want to do, and we say, hey, you know what, well, that's for your own good. And it's a very slippery slope that we could fall into by making children do stuff that inherently they don't want to do because they know it's bad for them. Right? Send them off to these schools. They know that that's bad. That's why they start crying and things like that. I mean, sometimes it might be the right situation. Lots of times it really isn't. But you start to see how regular, average, everyday, normal people come to start to slip into making their children do things that don't make sense. Why? Because it's good for them. But meanwhile, it doesn't make sense. And at the same time, we got to think about separating ourselves from savage barbarians. Right? We have to truly think about that because they will bring us down. Right? That is their nature. And at the same time, what are we doing? What do we have in common with the mothers of Mauritania? All right? And that we're trying to make children live in a certain sort of lifestyle that ain't even natural. All right? And we're trying to make excuses for it. And this is the tribulation. All right? And we're both doing it. It's been a long enough video. So when I have to holler at y'all later, y'all holler at me. All right? I'm over here in Big Spring. It's June the 9th, 2017. I'll holler at y'all.